Story 1. For a while now we've been having a dispute concerning several things wrong with our place, and he either refuses to do anything or says he'll do something and then is too lazy or greedy to follow through. Last January a new dispute began. Nearly annually we've had a maintenance guy come over to perform maintenance on the heating unit. This was a major nuisance to us, because without prior warning there would be a guy at our door calling my husband, and either him or me had to drop whatever we were doing and come home so the maintenance can be done. Later we found out this was because the company the maintenance guy works for would call the landlord to make an appointment, and the landlord would just pick the first possible option instead of coordinating the date with us. But I digress. The real trouble started when we got the bill for the maintenance. In our country, the landlord and tenant have to have agreements on who pays for what. Our landlord didn't talk to us about this, didn't mention anything or whatever. He just gave the maintenance company our info, and they sent us the bill. This didn't sit right with me at all, but my husband didn't want any trouble with anyone, so he paid the bill, which wasn't small. Unfortunately, due to difficult personal circumstances, this happened thrice in total. The third time was last January. My husband paid the bill again, but I decided enough is enough. I started messaging the landlord asking to pay us back for all of the bills. I also spoke to a lawyer. All in all, she said it's unlawful that he has no agreements with us and still makes us pay the bill. In the meantime, the landlord came to my husband's workplace during work hours to talk. In other words, he came to rant and yell at my husband. In his unhinged ranting and yelling, which my brilliant husband recorded, the landlord said that, "If a lawyer says so, then he'll pay us back. Ask and you shall receive, Mr. Landlord." I contacted the lawyer again. She sent him a demand letter and gave him a week to pay us back. Did he pay back? Of course not. After weeks of back and forth over email and me calling him out on lies and inconsistencies, and at this point demanding payment, last week he tells me that he has no obligation to pay us back because my husband signed a contract with the aforementioned maintenance company. He also said we can ask them to send us that contract. Husband and I talked about this and came to the conclusion that it's unlikely, as neither of us remembers any contract, let alone have a copy. The next day my husband calls the company to ask for the contract. Long story short, they told him they don't have any contracts with us personally. They only have a contract with the landlord which obligates them to perform maintenance on heating units in all of his properties. He should have given us a subcontract that he'd have to make himself, which means the company wouldn't have it anyways. I sent the landlord an email telling him they don't have any contracts with us and once again demanding payment. This was Friday last week. This past Monday the landlord answered my email. It briefly said, "See the maintenance contract attached." Weird. I opened the attachment. Oh, I see a contract, alright. First thing I see is the maintenance company logo. Mind you, a few days earlier that same company told my husband they don't have any contracts with him. Second thing I see is the opening paragraph of the contract being addressed directly to my husband. I scrolled down to the last page, and I thought, nah, that's not how husband's name writes. There was a written date and a signature. The handwriting was obviously not my husband's, and the signature looked to me to be similar to his, but not his. I thought it looked very awkward. It didn't have the same flow my husband's handwriting has, if that makes sense. At the time I wasn't 100% sure though. When my husband got home from work, I showed him the contract. He immediately said it's not his signature. He grabbed some other documents he signed before to compare. He wrote down his signature on a blank piece of paper to show me how he signs. Clear as day, the signature was forged. Then we looked closer at the contract. We could see that the opening paragraph that addressed my husband personally was in a slightly different font than the rest. Then it also occurred to us that this contract only applies for only one particular year, 2023. Okay, so if this contract is only valid in 2023, and when signed by the customer, the company is obligated to perform maintenance within that same year, then why did no one perform any maintenance on our heating unit in 2023? Spoiler, because this contract is fake, that's why. We were dumbstruck, furious, and frankly tired of this bullshit. We started Googling what to do in this situation. Most consistent answer we found was to file an official police report. The police will investigate and take necessary measures. So we called the police. We have an appointment tomorrow. I'm going to bed now. This turned out way longer than I expected, but it feels good to get it out. If you read this far, thank you. If anyone's interested in an update, let me know. Shane Lizard out. Story 2. Over a decade ago now, I worked the customer service desk for a large chain department store. We primarily handled returns, about 95% of which were run-of-the-mill transactions, 4% were unusual, and 1% were absolutely wild. This one was part of the 1%. But first, a brief description of the return process. To make a return, I could use the receipt itself, or look up the transaction by scanning the purchasing credit card, both a store card or other major card, Visa, MasterCard, etc. The refund would then be issued back to the original card, or, upon request, as a merchandise credit. Cash was only an option if used as original tender or to refund a debit card purchase. In the event of a customer not having their receipt or purchasing card available, a merchandise credit was automatically issued at the lowest refund amount possible. Use of a receipt or purchasing card ensured a refund of the full price paid. What this particular customer wanted to return is of no importance, and anyway I have long since forgotten. However, what I will never forget is how she wanted me to complete her return. You see, she had made the purchase some time ago on credit card A, as shown on her receipt. She had then closed credit card A and opened a new card, credit card B. Miss Customer wanted me to scan her receipt, ensuring her the full refund amount, but instead of crediting her refund to credit card A, apply the credit to credit card B. Apparently she believed that I could just type the new card information into my magical computer, and she'd be on her merry way, easy peasy lemon squeezy. She could not understand why that wasn't an option, and she did not want the only alternative, which was to process the full refund as a merchandise credit. In spite of my best attempts to inform her that I couldn't do what she was asking, and why she shouldn't want that capability on my end, Miss Customer thought I just didn't have the clearance and wanted me to get my manager, who told her the same thing. Sadly, I don't remember what Miss Customer ended up deciding, though I'm assuming she took the full merchandise credit in the end. I do remember what I told my manager as we watched Miss Customer walk out the door. If I could have done what she was asking me to do, I definitely wouldn't be working in retail. Story 3. This happened on a spiritual retreat we had before the COVID lockdowns happened. I studied in a Christian school that hosted spiritual retreats for graduating students, and I was one of those students. That year, the scheduled place was far south, and we had to ride a bus for more than 4 hours to get to our destination. We rode the buses at 3 a.m. and headed straight to the sanctuary, only taking a bus stop once at about 6 a.m. to eat breakfast. Mind you, the whole graduating class went on that spiritual retreat, meaning there were at least 5 buses and more than 100 students who were exhausted since we had to be awake for the activities inside the bus. The bus stop was bigger than expected, but still there were only 3 open establishments at that time of day, which was a small grocery, a Starbucks, and a McDonald's. I bet my life that the McDonald's staff didn't expect that volume of students to enter their store so early in the morning. The food was taking longer than usual, and we had no choice but to wait. Even the teachers who were keeping watch also had to line up for their food. No excuses. And at the moment that I least expected it, she came. Karen. I read stuff about Karens on the internet, but I thought that they were either isolated in the Western countries or that the entitled people in our country didn't have that distinct aesthetic. Her kinky blonde-ish hair, aviator glasses, blood-red lipstick, tiger-printed dress that reached up to her knee secured with a thick black belt, chunky heels, and a bag from a well-known brand is still stuck to my memories. She looked like she was in her early to late 50s. I had my breakfast packed by my mother, so I didn't really have a problem, but some of my friends had to order theirs. As soon as she arrived, Karen and her fellow Karens immediately sat down on the chairs provided outside the establishment. I heard her asking why there were so many students early in the morning, making it seem as if we were a hindrance to her. But what shocked me was the moment their order arrived. It was a bit late, probably 20 minutes late, but their order came. Maybe the one who was packing the orders also made a mistake, but I can't blame them. Karen was livid. The meal she ordered along with another one of her companions was missing a sausage. A single sausage. She demanded to see the manager, and the employee who gave the food was trembling, probably because of anger. They offered to just take the food back and, well, put a sausage. Simple as that. But Karen was looking for a fight. She screamed her lungs out. I was embarrassed for her. There were more than 100 students, the eldest aged 20, watching her be so unreasonable. After a few minutes of telling the employees how wrong they were, obviously hindering the efficiency of the store, she finally agreed for them to just put a sausage there and eat like nothing happened. I can't forget the looks in the eyes of our teachers who were there to watch over us. They may have thought that it was unreal. Story 4. Background. I'm a 35-year-old father of 2 boys. I have PTSD due to time overseas and have the physical scars to match the mental scars. I have an incredible wife that knows me and knows what situations I should avoid. My children are amazing, but this story revolves around my youngest son and my service dog. Jason, my youngest son, has autism, and we share a special bond because some things that set him off also put my teeth on edge. Spike is my English bulldog. He's my service dog. He's well-trained, lazy, judgmental, and overall uninterested in anything he can't eat. He's also very in tune to Jay and my emotions, and will provide a distraction when we get overwhelmed. Basically, he's like, "Oh, you're stressed. Here, scratch me. You'll feel better and I'll get attention." It's a win-win. The story. My family recently moved to Texas. Because we now live very close to an amusement park, we got memberships. Shout out to the park for being amazing when it comes to special needs. This particular park in Arlington, Texas, has a special program for autistic people. They have rooms set aside to chill, and if you're overstimulated, so you can relax, go back out, get overstimulated again, and around you go. With Jason, we also don't have to wait in lines. This is a huge thing and the cause of this story. The park has a pass that lets you skip most of the lines, and they charge an arm and a leg for this. However, with that pass, you still end up in a line of the hundreds of people that also have that pass. Jason gets no lines at all. We get a special pass, and we go in through the exit. The worker signs the pass, and we go on the ride. Jason has a favorite ride, the log ride. There have been days that we would ride the log ride over and over, then eat. We also have the food pass, which we pay for, then go back to the log ride. On this day, Taylor, my oldest, and Jason wanted to go on the log ride. So we made our way to the exit and left wife and Spiked in the shade because someone had to stay with him and bulldogs. Plus, rides don't mix. As we were going in the exit, a woman started screaming at us. I have absolutely no hearing on my right side, thanks high pressure wave, so didn't consider it worth turning my head to listen. Now because we ride this ride almost exclusively, the workers on this ride know us by name and sight. Jason even talks to them, which is rare. We go in, show the pass, sit and ride. This time though, Karen was screaming at us as we were walking in through the out, made her way to where the speedy pass ends at the ride, where a red shirt will check her pass and let her go on her way. She didn't even want to ride. She just wanted to yell about us going in through the exit and how we are abusing the system. Now anyone that looks at Jason can see he's in a world all his own and wouldn't be surprised if he's literally reading the future or talking to aliens. He's awesome. The red shirt tries to calm her down. Taylor is getting upset because he's a normal 9-year-old and adults yelling is uncool. Jason makes his excited sounds and waits for the log to stop so he can get in. We get in, and as we float away, we still hear Karen screaming. The ride ends and we exit. We figured we would never see Karen again, but obviously as I'm here, it didn't go that way. Karen appeared like a dark brother after making the sacrifice. Elder Scrolls reference, hooting and screaming. She is screaming that just because Jason is an R word doesn't mean we get extra rights. The screaming causes Jason to let out his super screech. Now anyone that knows autism knows that autistic kids have superpowers. In Jason's case, it's a supersonic ear-shattering high-pitched screech that makes your eyes swim and makes it feel like things in your head are moving that shouldn't. This whole time Spike was laying on the ground in the froggy position, as bulldogs do, just looking at Karen like she's a rabid dog, but not worth getting up for. As we are being screamed at, I see two officers approaching from behind Karen. I smile. My smile must have broken Karen because the haul's off and kicks Spike. This flips my switch because now my family is literally under attack and I start to react. Before I could make contact, Karen is already in the air being held, carried, half dragged away while being cuffed. Now in front of me is a well-dressed and mad-looking officer. He tells us he heard the screech and started heading to it because they thought a ride broke or something bad happened. I take the time to unflip that switch and examine Spike. He's limping and crying. I feel his hips and feel that his hip is dislocated. I jokingly ask the officer to walk away and let me get some. He of course has no humor to this, but also can tell I had a career. He asked what happened, and we all explained what happened from A to Z. He asks if Spike is a service dog. I say yes. He smiles. I'm not in a smile mood, but it catches me off guard. He explains that in Texas to intentionally injure a service dog is a felony. By this time park security arrived and issued a trespass order to Karen. The officers ask if I want to press charges. I look at Spike and look back. Yes, I say. Karen and her tiny mouse-like husband start to freak out as Karen is loaded onto a golf cart. We hop on a cart too and leave to go to the vet. The vet fixed Spike and all is well. We went back the next day with Spike in a stroller. No one batted an eye and everyone loved the bulldog in a stroller. I let people pet him. He's a hoot and the park is an amazing place. I've been contacted by the investigating officer and have given depositions. I may have to testify, but I look forward to sitting on the bench with Spike on my lap. Story 5. A few years back in 2018, I had decided to switch employers. I worked from home as a chat support specialist and eventually a supervisor for a major tech company. I had decided to switch to a small-time customer support agency that was just starting a new chat team. They had better pay and benefits because they only had a small number of employees compared to the former. The description of the position I was to be hired for was another salary-based supervisory role for their brand new chat team for the client. I'd basically be doing the same things as my previous job, but also spearheading this small department, while simultaneously training other coworkers with zero experience in chat support. This was going extremely well, and our client was ecstatic at the results of the new chat program. They had personally sent me an email over my progress. The company I left was, and still is, known worldwide to have the friendliest and professional customer support out of any other company, and so it was easy to apply what I learned to this new position. After about 2 months of doing this, the person I directly reported to, the regional supervisor, was retiring. Our new regional came in and was friendly at first, but decided that he didn't want to waste his time on chat, and directed me to phone support, which was not in my job description, nor what I was hired for by any means. He cited that the client was unhappy with the results, which was in stark contrast to what they had told me directly. Even after forwarding him the email, he was still not doing anything about it. So, I complied. It took just 2 days for the client to have reached out to me, personally. After explaining to them the situation, they were livid. My new regional had lied to me about his contact with the client, and had essentially ignored our client's attempt to contact him about this issue. I had continued to work in the supervisory role for phones until the first quality review of my employees came up. For team leads and direct call center employees both. This is where I review their interactions and grade them based on their strengths and weaknesses. Our regional wanted me to even include the chat support team who were neither hired or trained for phones. He refused to give them training on every single employee who was hired for chat support. I had filed all of them as unable to be completed, and in my notations I included that this is not the position they were hired or trained for, and thus an analysis could not be accurately completed. And I sent this to both the regional manager and our client as well, since at this point I had a direct contact email. I was responded to the same day by whoever it is within our client who oversees all of outsourcing. The only words I got back were, "We will deal with this." The client held a meeting the following week with my employers. I'm not sure what was said in that meeting, but word got back to everyone that the client had dropped us for breach of contract. Because this was a small office and our company's only client for several years, this was bad. After that, me and my team were offered a position with the company directly doing the things we were hired to do, but required us to move about 4 hours north. So unfortunately none of us decided to accept that offer. I collected unemployment until I found a new job. Now the company is out of business and is currently being sued by some other employees for unpaid wages. This new case has been going on since 2019. Edit. For clarification purposes, because it seems to confuse some people, it's just one office of less than 300 employees. The name of his position was Regional Supervisor. It was pretty stupid to name him that, but that's what he was called, even though he worked the only office that existed. I'll assume it was to make the role look more attractive than it actually is. That's a common happenstance. Story 6. I paid cash for a 2-bedroom condo in April. The condo came with 2 parking permits, one red, one green. The updated rules that were sent to me after closing states that an owner gets 2 parking permits, one for covered parking and one for uncovered parking. However, the rules do not state which permit is for which parking. Walking around the neighborhood revealed both green and red permits under covered parking, as well as about half of the vehicles showing no permit at all. 1 week ago, I received a notice on my windshield that my car would be towed for not showing the proper permit, even though the permit was clearly visible in the corner of the passenger side windshield. In fact, the notice was placed under the passenger wiper blade directly above the permit. I called the management company and informed them of their mistake along with a picture of the permit in the corner of the windshield. I thought that this would solve the problem. I was wrong. I am a nurse and I work the nocturnal shift. At about 13 o'clock, my wife came in screaming that one of our cars was being towed. I immediately got up, got dressed, and went outside to find an employee of the management company directing a tow truck to tow my car. She said that it was being towed because it had the wrong color permit. I immediately pulled up the R&Rs on my phone and asked her to show me where the color codes were explained. She couldn't do that, because that explanation doesn't exist in the rules. But she refused to stop the towing company, so I had no choice but to call the police. Upon arrival, I explained to the officers what was happening and showed them the R&Rs on my phone, and both of my cars with the proper permits. They told the management employee and the tow company that they had no reason to tow my car. The rep hemmed and hawed that I was parked wrong, even if the rules didn't state so. The cop ordered the tow company to release my car. Problem solved, right? Wrong. I go back to bed and just fall asleep when my wife comes in screaming that they are towing the car again. I go back outside and the same cop is there from earlier. This time the president of the management company, the one who oversees HOA board meetings, is there along with the same tow truck driver and employee from before. This time, my car is already up on the flatbed. The manager told police that I still had the wrong permit to use covered parking, even though it was the right one according to this unwritten rule that I had learned of earlier in the day. The cop asked the manager if she had inspected the permit before calling for the car to be towed. She admitted that she hadn't and was just going off of what the employee had told her from earlier. The cop asked her to verify that the permit was the right color to be under covered parking, and she hesitatingly admitted that it was. The cop was visibly perturbed and again ordered the tow truck to release my vehicle. He then gave a stern talking to the manager about making false claims and not verifying for herself what her employee told her. The cop gave me a case number and said that both reports would be available in 24 hours. I plan to use those reports to bring this to the attention of the HO board, as I know for certain that the manager will try to sweep this under the rug or will refuse to even acknowledge this incident. Update 1. I was finally able to get to the police station for the 2 police reports from that day. Report #1 at 14:02. Management believes he does not have a proper parking permit, but per RP, he does. Civil issue between the RP, reporting person, and the management/HO board over parking. The property has parking guidelines which are unclear of what vehicle could park where. The RP has been having issues with one specific board member who he states harasses him. They were advised he could obtain a civil harassment order. The RP's vehicle was not towed. Report #2 at 18 o'clock. Subject has credentials to park where he was told not to park. HOA did not verify before calling tow. They have been counseled. The truck had a proper parking pass. HOA manager did not verify before calling a tow. They have been told they must verify prior to calling a tow or else they could face civil issues. I think that this pretty much shows how wrong the HOA management was. I am talking to an attorney about my best legal options. Little update. I received word from the HOA management company that I would not be allowed to attend the online meeting tomorrow because it is only for the listed owner, who happens to be my wife. And I have a full legal, valid, and notarized power of attorney that gives me exclusive rights to discuss the property with the HOA board and HOA management. I shot back a nasty email telling the management company to go back to law school. Update 2. There was an attempt to bar me from the meeting 2 days before it was scheduled. For reasons I won't go into now, the condo is held in a trust with my son as the beneficiary, which means from a legal standpoint he is the holder of the deed. The HOA management company tried to argue that only deed-holding owners can participate in violation hearings. This, despite me having a fully encompassing power of attorney for my son that explicitly gives me the power to manage all real estate holdings. In the end, my son sent an email to the HOA management designating me as his representative in the matter, and they were forced to accept it. However, the meeting was postponed until August 3rd. Edit. From the first viewing to the close of escrow, I have always been the POC. The PO specific to this property has been on file with A, the escrow company, B, the BIA. The condo is on leased Indian land. C, my financial institution. D, the HOA management company, the one causing these problems. E, the home insurance company. The HOA management company did not even know any of my son's contact info prior to the 24th, as they have never had any reason to interact with him, due to the POA. This was a ploy to prevent me from representing myself at the hearing, but it backfired on them. Update 3. Today, I received a letter from the HOA management that I have violated CC and R regulations by posting my open letter to HOA members on the HOA bulletin board that is located at the front of the complex next to the mailboxes. I had posted the letter that I had sent to the HOA board regarding the intentional harassment by the board regarding my properly permitted vehicle being intentionally towed on July 7th. I went through both the R&Rs and the CC&Rs and could find no mention of HOA members posting on the HOA bulletin board being illegal. Interestingly, the letter states my violation as posting letters illegally on HOA info boards. I'm no lawyer, but illegally generally means there is some state or local law prohibiting an act. HOA rules aren't local, state, or federal law. So I don't know why they are using the term illegally. No worries. I laughed it off. My wife and I have decided to go ahead with filing suit against the HOA. We have retained an experienced law firm that only represents homeowners in HOA disputes. Update 4. It's been a long 2 days first off. While this parking drama has been unfolding, there is a second issue that I have been dealing with. That is an HOA board member ambushing and harassing me in the parking lot when I leave for work at night. This has happened twice in the 5 months that we have lived here. This is the board member who has placed security cameras at various places around the building, including one that he had pointed at the pool area, apparently recording people at the pool, including children. As a result, I had determined that my best course of action, after filing a complaint with the HOA board twice, which was ignored both times, was to request a restraining order against this individual. A temporary restraining order was denied by the court, and a hearing was scheduled for today to consider the regular restraining order. I arrived at court only to be told that the hearing was rescheduled in 2 weeks. Important to note is that I received no notice of the date change, as is required by law. Upon arriving back home, I was greeted by an email from a high-priced HOA law firm out of Los Angeles. The letter basically states that they are representing the board member and that my restraining order request has no merit, because he was acting within his duties as an HOA board member. What the letter failed to mention was that the first instance of harassment took place before he was seated on the board. The letter goes on about frivolous lawsuits, having to pay the board members legal fees, blah, blah, blah. It's a nonsense letter designed to scare me off of pursuing the restraining order. One thing of note in the letter is its attempt to conflate my restraining order request with my continuous parking violations. This board member is the same one who has 2 parking passes that allow him to park both his cars under the carport. Us regular peons only get 1. The hearing. I logged on through Zoom to find only the HOA management representative with her camera on. The other 4 board members, including the one I have the restraining order pending against, were all blacked out. The HOA rep insisted that it was I that requested the meeting and therefore there would be no questions. I would state my case and the board would decide in executive session what my fate would be. I argued that it wasn't me who requested the meeting. It was the board that sent the violation notice to me. Anyway, I made my case the best I could by pointing out that no new owners were told what permit was for what parking. I then pointed out that a letter was sent in February with the details of the parking permits, but that I never received that letter when I closed escrow in April. And that letter explicitly states that the permits are non-transferable and registered to the individual units/owners. So the board member with 2 red permits is in violation of the HOA R&Rs. My pleas fell on deaf ears. So, now I wait to hear my fate. My wife, who has been supportive, has had enough. She's ready to sell and get out of this nightmare. She went so far as to arrange our realtor to meet with us this Saturday. The good news is that prices have increased roughly 15 to 20% in just 5 months. So if we sell, we will just break even considering our closing costs. Update 5. Something that I have not mentioned up to now is my ongoing attempt at engaging as many other homeowners as I can in the workings of the HOA and management company. To that end, I set up a Zoom call and spread the word. The call was this afternoon and 15 homeowners logged on. All of them related stories from hell concerning the management company and its principal agent, who is the head of the HOA, and all agreed that the management company needs to be replaced. One of the homeowners is an active member of the HOA board, but is resigning next week. He indicated the 2 other board members are either resigning or moving, so that there will be 3 empty seats on the board. Of the 15 on the call, 3 agreed to be nominated to fill those empty slots. It's a start towards cleaning up the HOA board and replacing the management company with a competent one,